The Chicago White Sox go into an off season where ownership wants a quick turnaround but with limited resources. Can general manager Chris Getz pull off a minor miracle, considering he needs to find help for Dylan Cease in the starting rotation? Well, let's discuss. That's right, the offseason now is in full gear. Players are now declaring for free agency. The Chicago White Sox are currently making decisions on their current group of free agents. They announced that they have declined the option on Liam Hendriks, the closer who miraculously came back after a cancer battle, then had to get Tommy John surgery. They decided that they don't want to pay Liam $15 million for this year to basically rehab. Instead, they will pay him $1 million a year for the next 15 years. So once Bobby Bonilla Day is done, we can now celebrate Liam Hendriks Day. And I would love to see the White Sox still bring back Liam Hendriks for what he does for the community, for what he does for the clubhouse, and he is intent on pitching this in 2024. He basically pitched on a partially torn UCL for most of his career, so I wouldn't bet against him trying to get back in time. Maybe get him on a minimum deal, that way he can rehab and even sign him to a club option. We'll see, but they already posted the thank you Liam on their X account, so I doubt he's going to be coming back. Maybe the Dodgers will sign him so that way he can rehab. I think that's just the big thing is you want to see a guy like Liam Hendriks who just had terrible luck and is such a good dude, be taken care of at least. In terms of the Sox needs, they definitely need a right field that has been a perpetual hole in their lineup. They need a second baseman. They may need a shortstop because they still have not decided on what to do with Tim Anderson's option. They can exercise it for $14 million. I still think Tim needs a change of scenery. He is nowhere near the AL batting champion all-star that we've seen. I think he does hate it here, and I think they need to just part ways. But the biggest thing that they're going to need is pitching. They're going to need help in the bullpen, but they definitely need help in the starting rotation. Mike Clevinger declined his part of his mutual option, so he's now a free agent. And, just bye. See you later, I'm not going to swear, but questionable character. He did produce. It wouldn't have been the end of the world had he come back, but I don't get why he didn't exercise his option. I get that he thinks he could probably make more, but again, the Sox waived him and no team claimed him. But then again, it's a decent pitching market. He did produce. Somebody's probably going to give him the multi-year deal that he's looking for, despite his questionable character. But they do need starting pitching help because as of right now, you can only put a Sharpie on Dylan Cease. The projected starting rotation depth chart, according to ESPN, they've got Dylan Cease, Michael Kopech, who was absolutely abysmal. He was so bad that they moved him to the bullpen, and then he was even worse, and then he had to have knee surgery again. Michael Kopech is that type of guy who's got a $10 million arm but a 10-cent head. He just doesn't have it up there. Whatever it is, he just cannot put it consistently together. He will only use his fastball, and if it doesn't have any movement whatsoever, he's getting tattooed. I think they need to move on from him. Ideally, you non-tender him. But the front office is confident that they can rehab him, the new leadership group. And I'm going to tell you, I've seen this. I know I've talked about it, but I've seen guys like him not pan out with the original team. He might still have a great career as a reliever somewhere else. It can't hurt to maybe try him out of the bullpen. We saw him in 2021 be a great weapon, a 2-3 inning reliever. But I don't think he trusts his stuff anymore to be that weapon again. You'd also have Touki Toussaint, who can't command any of his pitches, Nick Nastrini, the pitching prospect they got back for Lance Lynn, and what a win that trade was. Lance Lynn was a train wreck for the Dodgers in the playoffs. And they didn't exercise his option, so he gone. Nick Nastrini, I definitely would like to see compete for a starting rotation spot in spring training. But again, how we got to judge Chris Getz is what our owner, Jerry Reinsdorf, has told us. Remember, the owner that hates us. Deep down, he hates us. Because we don't spend enough money, we actually hold him accountable, and we think Dennis Eckstein is the worst player ever. Well, maybe not the worst player ever, but the Cardinals did not win because of Dennis Eckstein. Trust me on that. He was Captain Mediocre, and that is one of our owner's favorite players. But I think, Nick Nastrini deserves a shot. But again, when we talk about the standard, Jerry Reinsdorf said Chris Getz is going to turn things around quickly. I think that's a terrible standard, though, to hold a general manager to, because we don't want things turned around quickly. We want things done right. We want sustained success. We want to compete for multiple World Series. And in Jerry's mind, I think, he's so selfish. He's so worried about his legacy that he's going to leave behind that he just wants one more. And that's great. I'll take one more. I love 2005. I never thought I would see a White Sox World Series in my lifetime. And yes, we want it again, but it's always got to be on Jerry Reinsdorf's terms. And I'm sorry, but 2005 was an aberration. You take it, you love it, you savor it, but you got the most dominant starting pitching performances ever, and they all aligned. That rarely happens. You had one of the most dominant runs ever. That rarely happens. What you need to do is, for example, what the Texas Rangers did. You need to spend money, which Jerry Reinsdorf thinks he does, but not at the rate that the Rangers did. You need to spend big money on top-tier talent to cover holes that your system can't produce. You need to spend it, though, wisely. You can't just be like the San Diego Padres or the New York Mets, where you just grab the best collection of talent, which is a good idea, but they've got to fit together. It's got to fit within a roster construction. You got to, again, spend like the Phillies. Spend like the Rangers. You get Corey Seager, you get Marcus Semien, you put two in the middle infield together, you grab a pitcher like John Gray, Nathan Eovaldi. It all fits within the roster construction. Not Manny Machado, Juan Soto, throw it all over together and hope it sticks. Match it up. Spend a lot of money maybe on your outfield and then construct it wisely within your infield. But either way, Jerry's not going to spend the money. He's going to put a self-imposed salary cap on this team again, because that's one of the things that destroyed this contention window. It was Tony La Russa, who's still in meetings. He is still in organizational meetings, and he's probably running them. That's another reason that just being a fan of the White Sox can be just so hard, because we have an owner who doesn't care about us. He thinks he does. He only cares about himself. And the funny thing is when he mentions, well, if you care about what the fan says, you're going to end up sitting with them. Yeah, Tommy Lasorda can say that because he was a manager. You are the owner. You sit with us. You sit in an owner's box. But the standard that I'm going to hold Chris Getz to is can you turn things around quickly? Rounding out the starting pitching rotation depth chart would be Jesse Schultens, who I do think deserves a shot. He is definitely a depth piece that you need. He actually filled in admirably, especially after Davis Martin, who was the only starting pitching depth that they had went down with Tommy John surgery. I thought Chilton's did okay. But again, that's not going to turn things around quickly if you have Cease, Kopech, Toussaint, Nastrini, and Chiltons. That's not even going to contend in a very weak AL Central. And you might have Garrett Crochet, which again, with his fastball and his velocity, that is again another weapon that you need in the 7th and the 8th inning, not 1st through 5th innings. You want him in high leverage situations. So, if you're Chris Getz, you've already been told that Shohei Ohtani has been ruled out. You're probably definitely not going to be in the Aaron Nola or Blake Snell sweepstakes. Sorry for the Australian accent there. Just still, getting over losing Liam Hendricks. Had to take a sip of my coffee there. By the way, Caribou Mahogany Coffee, excellent. I go with the Caribou Coffee, grounds, little half and half. That's the good stuff there. And yes, I'm a Bears fan too, so I'm a glutton for punishment. But if you want to turn things around quickly, you might be able to at least spend some money to convince Jerry to open up his wallet and a couple of these pitchers that I think will help. First one, Sonny Gray. He had a 2.79 ERA, 2.83 fielding independent, pitching 1.15 whip, 5.3 F-WAR for the Minnesota Twins. So you can sign Sonny Gray and also weaken a division rival. He can probably slide in and be maybe your number 2, number 3 starter. He is in his mid-30s. He's had some inconsistent seasons, but he's pitched well the last 5. He's going to be 34. He's projected to earn a 3-year, $60 million contract. At least that's according to Spotrac or Spotic. I can never know how to pronounce it. Spotic. But 3 years, $60 million. So that's a $20 million annual average. Where you might be able to convince Jerry to spend that money is you're going to weaken the Twins. You're going to get a good right-handed pitcher who's going to eat innings. He has destroyed the White Sox. White Sox hitters over his career have hit 224. And he's not going to cost $100 million projected. Now, we all know how the market can just make starting pitching salaries astronomical. But being 34 years old, he's probably not going to get a 5 or 6 year deal. He's right in that sweet spot for Jerry Reinsdorf. I say go make the signing, Chris Getz. This one would be expensive. But when you look at the average AAV and the fact that you need left-handed pitchers in your starting rotation, you have no righties, you have no lefties right now. Jordan Montgomery won a World Series with the Texas Rangers. He is projected to potentially get a 6-year, $110 million contract. So that already is going to probably be too rich for the White Sox blood because they have never signed a player to a deal over $100 million. That's another reason why this organization has been stuck in mediocrity since 2008. You have to sign a player over $100 million. You have to. That's part of the spending that the Sox have not done. That is part of the spending you need to do to win a World Series. But again, if you sign him at 6-year, 110, and I believe he's going to be 31, 32, no, 31, it's still $18 million annually. So that is something that maybe the Sox and Reinsdorf can digest a little bit, that you're not paying him $25, $30 million. It'll be an $18 million annually for a left-handed pitcher who's very solid. Had a 3.20 ERA last year, 4.5 F4. And again, when I look at pitchers' statistics, I'm just going to tell you what I look at. And I know there's just tons of math in that. I don't look at wins anymore because pitchers are rarely, if ever, pitching over 8 innings. When it was a win, when Bob Gibson took the ball and he was pitching, 9, 10 innings, when they literally won the game. So I don't look at wins. I'm never going to mention wins. I like ERA. Obviously, it's a traditional stat, but it definitely shows, what's the potential of them giving up runs. I like fielding independent pitching because, again, it takes out that luck factor and all that. I like WHIP. That's what I look at. I look at WAR. I particularly look at Fangraphs WAR over BWAR, Baseball Reference WAR. I will look at average velocity sometimes, mostly for bullpen pitchers because, again, I believe you either need to have crafty stuff, which is typically your starting pitchers because they got to be able to go, at least 5-6 innings, and that's the stuff that translates well to not just totally blowing out arms, and then or velocity. And I watched a great documentary. It was actually at the Roving Baseball Hall of Fame Museum. And they explained again, why does velocity mean so much? Like if you're throwing 100 miles an hour, you're speeding up the hitter's decision to swing from 1 Mississippi to 1 Missa. You're taking it from basically 1 second to 0.7 seconds potentially. And I know there's tons of other stats out there, and I'll be referencing that from time to time. But I typically stick to those as definitely the ones that I'm looking at for pitchers. Ground balls to fly balls are also good, but with this White Sox defense, you might need a guy that throws a fly ball, except for with this ballpark. So that's the other thing that the White Sox need to do is they need to upgrade their defense somehow, some way, which I'm not sure they're going to be able to do. But when you're looking at a 3.20 ERA and a 4.5 F4, that's adding value. And again, they need to add 35 to 37 WAR players, according to Sox Machine's Josh Nelson, just total this offseason to try to contend. You got to try to find guys with high value. And again, why WAR? Because it's going to tell me their overall value as a player that's going to help you contribute to wins. So those are the expensive ones. Let's go to the reclamation projects. Jack Flaherty, not totally a reclamation project. He's battled injuries. He only had a 4.9 ERA, 4.36 FIP, and a 1.8 F4 for the Baltimore Orioles. He did have a 4.25 ERA with St. Louis in 2022, but he only started 8 games. He's been battling injuries for the last 3 years, but he was dominant in 2018 and 2019 with the Cardinals. He was an ace. 150 innings. He had a 2.75 ERA in 2019. He's projected by Spotrac. Again, I'm sorry about this. 4 years, $44 million. But again, you might be able to get him on a 1-year deal. Make good with a mutual option. You'd be getting a guy who has the potential to eat innings. He still has ace stuff. And again, might fit, if he's right, he's going to help you turn around your rotation quickly. He's that good. He just needs to be available. And if he's available, then I think you have a very solid rotation. Say you get Sonny Gray and Flaherty. You add those two. Now you have Dylan Cease. You have a really good 1-2-3. I would still non-tender Tukey and Michael Kopech. But let's say you have Jesse Scholtens and you have Garrett Crochet. That, at least in the AL Central, is going to be competitive. And then let's add Alex Wood. You might be saying, you're crazy, Welter. But he's a lefty. He's still 33. He had a 4.33 ERA for the Giants, 4.47 FIP. He was only a .2 FWAR. He's been inconsistent, but again, another pitcher who was really good at one point. He's just been battling injuries. He only started 12 games last season. One of his, he hasn't logged over 150 innings since 2018. But he was outstanding with the Dodgers. He had a 2.27 ERA in 152 innings in 2017. He was also really good in 2018. And he's only going to cost you 1 year, $6 million, according to projections. And again, it's a lefty, and he's 33. So let's add him. Now we got potentially Dylan Cease. Ideally, you have Sonny Gray then, Flaherty, and if he's healthy, a really good pitcher. And again, Montgomery is, I'm going to admit, he's a wish. I want them to pursue him, but I doubt it. But I think Alex Wood makes sense. So now you have a rotation of Cease, Gray, Flaherty, Wood. Yeah, there's risks, but it allows you maybe then to bring back Michael Kopech as your fifth starter. You bring back Jesse Schultens. He's your long man or your AAA depth. Maybe you bring back Touki Toussaint just for AAA depth and starting pitching depth, because that was the other thing that just destroyed the White Sox. They had no pitching depth, and you basically got to sign 8 starters or have 8 starters. Because rarely if ever these days now, you are having pitchers throwing 200 innings. In fact, it's probably, organizational negligence if you're having them consistently go to 200 innings, unless they have proven they have a rubber arm. You need to skip a few starts here and there. You need to either have an opener or a spot starter. And that's what Schultens can be. But he shouldn't be just penciled in or sharpied in as the 5th starter, which I have a high feeling that that's what they're going to do. I have a high feeling that this is just going to be the offseason of Whit Merrifield and Salvador Perez. Just like last offseason was just the offseason of Mike Clevenger. But hey, we'll see. Final guy that I would pursue, Wade Miley, 37 years old, another lefty, 3.14 ERA for the Brewers in 23 starts, 1.1 FWAR. Going to probably cost you 1 year, $8 million. Now he might go back to the Brewers. He did decline his part of the mutual option, but the Brewers are being rumored to want to bring him back. He's a solid pitcher. He's won some playoff games. The problem is he will be on the IL. He always is on the IL. It's just how long. I think he was on the IL. He was with the Cubs briefly. He was on the IL, I believe, for most of the year, if I recall. But if he's only having a short stay on the IL, say it's just some basically the aches and pains, shoulder tightness, he can be a very good pitcher for your rotation. So then you're adding, so let's say they don't want to go with Alex Wood, you can go with Wade Miley. Or I just say sign both. That's $14 million right there. Even if it's just those two lefties, $14 million. I still think they need to spend big. So let's say Sonny Gray. So let's put that there. I know 2 lefties, maybe you can never have enough starting left-handed pitching. So now you got Cease. Let's go Sonny Gray. Yeah, let's go Flaherty, Miley, and Wood. Now you don't have to spend a ton of money on your bullpen because you can kick Kopech back, allow him to find himself. You're going to have Garrett Crochet there, and you're going to have Jesse Scholtens. And yes, I would say then in that case, bring back Touki Toussaint, just because we need the legend of Touki. But if you have that type of rotation, that's going to turn things around quickly, in my opinion, or at least give you the opportunity. And at the very least, if you're still out of it, you can flip those guys for prospects if they're performing up to what they're supposed to be. At least Miley, Wood, and ideally you'd sign Flaherty to a 1-year deal with an option. And then Nick Nastrini, you can bring up the right way, which is have him come out of the bullpen. That is usually the best way to have somebody start. Or again, you have more depth. But again, what's going to happen is they're going to think small picture. They're going to convince themselves that they have what they need because that's what Jerry Reinsdorf is going to tell them. Although it would not shock me if they get at least Flaherty on a 1-year deal if his market comes down. And it wouldn't shock me if they got, one after Alex Wood. So those would be at least 2 realistic options. Everything else is just a pipe dream, just like it'll be a pipe dream for a quick turnaround.